Well, two of the most famous cities will light up tonight in Europe as the UEFA Champions League begins its elimination process from 8 to 4. We've been waiting for this, and we know you have been waiting for it too. London and Madrid will take center stage as one team aims to continue their trek to win their first title, while the other hopes to add to their repertoire of most Champions League crowns. Of course, we're talking about Arsenal and Real Madrid. We're talking about the Emirates Stadium and the Bernabeu. And their opponents, quite familiar, Bayern Munich, and of course the champions, Manchester City. Let's confirm the matchups, shall we? All four of them, Arsenal against Bayern Munich, our feature match today on Sportsmax 2. Real Madrid hosting Manchester City live on the Sportsmax app. And of course the matches tomorrow, we'll see Paris Saint-Germain squaring off with Barcelona and Atletico Madrid playing host to Borussia Dortmund. It is indeed a stellar lineup of 8. 3 from Spain, 2 from England, 2 from Germany, and 1 from France. It's a pleasure bringing you the pageantry, which is Champions League football, live from our studio in Kingston, Jamaica. My name is Donald Oliver. Let's meet the panel. DJ Williams is here in studio with me, one of our young, bright analysts who eats and sleeps football. Full disclosure, he's an Arsenal supporter, so he has a tendency to either be a little bit overbearing or endearing, depending on which side of the coin you're looking at. Also in studio, Mariah Ramharak. She's fresh from Carnival. She'll be providing the stats and the facts of the matches ahead, and will no doubt put me under the cosh to pick a winner, as she usually does. And of course, I will deny her. Online, Juan Arango, our chief South American correspondent, who provides the driest of humor this side of the hemisphere. And Ben Davis is also here. We're still getting to know Ben, but he brings a wealth of experience from his time coaching around the Caribbean, South America, and in Europe. So let's talk about the quarterfinal matchups, because it's been pretty interesting, the Champions League so far. Let's start with Leger. Your thoughts on the matchups? Do you think this is the best 8 in Europe this season?
Yeah, for the teams that are in the Champions League, I do think these are the best 8 teams. I think that a lot of these teams have been performing at a really high level. I do think that, of course, probably today we'll probably have 3 of the best 4 teams in Europe in the Champions League going at it, that being Manchester City, Real Madrid, Arsenal. Of course, there's Bayern Munich as well, and then tomorrow we'll see PSG. So there's a lot of talent, a lot of coaching ability, a lot of great players, a lot of great atmospheres that we're going to be seeing over these next couple of games. And yeah, it's really good to see this, this breath of fresh air in the competition, teams that haven't been there in a while, that have really come and injected, some life into the competition. There's several teams like that. I won't call any names, of course, but of course we'll get on to the matchups.
As I said, slightly overbearing. Anyway, Juan Arango joining the discussion. Tell me, what are your thoughts on this final 8 here?
Are they the best 8 in Europe? You might have an argument that they're not, but they've been the most consistent in this tournament. They've been the ones that have been able to perform the best in this tournament, because you could also say the same about Inter Milan. They're not here anymore. Bayern Munich, would you say they're the best in Europe right now? Probably not. But overall, they have been the most consistent, and they've been able to get their act together quick enough in this Champions League to be where they're at. So yeah, you would be able to be, and of course, you have a situation where you have basically every single team that has been in the final. Some have won, some have been there once. I won't mention any names either, and they've lost. So.
Ben, do you see clear favorites here? Because, again, we're in the final 8, and I'm not sure if the teams stand out as much as they would have in previous rounds. What do you think?
Well, all 8 teams obviously have got there through their own merit, and they deserve to be there, But we always said that Real Madrid and Manchester City were the outlying favourites, coming into this. And I still believe that they are those 2 favourites. But obviously, we're going to have to lose one today. Well, not today, but obviously in this leg after the second game. And you've got, the Bayern Munich, who are obviously won it 6 times. You've got Atletico Madrid, who always pose problems whenever they play. And as Leger said, there is a lot of quality, a lot of good coaches involved. So it's going to be interesting matchups all the way through.
Yep, that's true. Now let's turn our attention to the Bernabeu, where Real Madrid and Man City meet in a tie that most of us had as the potential final before this draw. Well, the battle between these two teams have been memorable, and in the previous 2 seasons they have met to decide a finalist. We're going to take a look at the head-to-head matchup between these two teams. But Leger, come into the discussion here as to the type of matchup you anticipate, because we've seen results in the past where it was heavily in favor of Man City in the last couple of seasons. In fact, let's go to that clip now, the matchup between these two teams. Always interesting.
Times Real Madrid have been the kings of Europe. Another meeting of Real Madrid and Manchester City. And so here they go again.
Still goes, and still goes. Oh, that is absolutely magnificent. What a hit from Erling Haaland.
Raheem Diaz, and he's still going. Oh, boy, is he still going.
Alvarez with the delivery towards that near post. It's smashed in by Kanji. What a strike. And how it was needed.
No stopping that. No saving that. Here goes De Bruyne. And he scored this one.
Bernardo Silva. What a finish that is. In at the near post.
Benzema's done very well to get it across. And they have scored. Rodrigo to the rescue. We've seen a lot of dramatic football. This is right up there with it. Vinicius Junior! A Real Madrid rocket. De Bruyne strikes. Oh, that's wonderful. He got all of that. De Bruyne through to Bernardo Silva.
Bernardo Silva on that left foot. Makes no mistake.
Manchester City 4, Real Madrid 0.
Yeah, we have seen some of the best characters in football take part in this matchup between Real Madrid and Man City, and there will be some characters on show today. I was talking to Leger now in terms of the scorelines that we've seen between these two teams in the recent past, heavily in favor of Manchester City. Do you reckon, though, that the tide is turning here?
Not necessarily. I think these two teams are evenly matched. I think these are the two best teams in Europe, and they have performed that way in the Champions League this season. Over the past 4 semi-final clashes that we've seen between them, the 4 games, it's featured 17 goals. Man City with 10, Real Madrid with 7. But I don't think that's the game that Pep Guardiola wants to play. Obviously, he's a Spanish coach. I know we know anything about Pep Guardiola. He emphasizes control over everything, and I think we saw that last season in terms of the performance that Manchester City had at the Bernabeu. It was a really tight game, the 1-1. And then when they got to the Etihad, they started to exploit all the weaknesses of Real Madrid, really. And that's a similar thing to what I expect now. I think at the Bernabeu in this game, I think it's more so going to be a game where we see, a lot less given away from Manchester City. Real Madrid will play their normal game, because I think Real Madrid are the team over the years best suited to play in any game state, whether it be a transitional game state where they need to control the game, whether they need to defend in any type of block. I think they're the team best suited to do that against any opponent. So I think Pep Guardiola is well aware of that, so he'll be just trying to control things in the first leg, keep things tight, and then when they get back to the Etihad, as we saw last season in the semi-final, I think that's when he will try to open up.
Ben, you hinted at this before, and I just want to go into it a little bit more in terms of this quarter-final matchup. Do you think that we're actually seeing what many anticipated to have been the final meet a couple of rounds earlier?
I think a lot of neutral fans were hoping that this would be the final and they'd be kept apart. But the beauty of it is, we're not going to be seeing them just once, we're going to be seeing them twice. But I think, as Leger said, Pep will be a bit cautious in this one, seeing as he's probably without Kyle Walker, he's injured. And there is some doubt, obviously, in Ake. So he probably has Edison returning. But again, I think he'll probably try and go for the draw if possible and just take them back to Man City. And then, obviously, there's no hiding place for Real Madrid when they get teams back at the Etihad. But Real Madrid will be going all out to win. They've nothing to lose. And they probably need to score 2 or 3 goals to defend, going back to City. So it's going to be a tight one.
One Man City, of course, would have won this tie 5-1 on aggregate. Do you think that they're 4 goals better than Real Madrid this time around?
No. I think you have a Madrid side that, even though they've been plagued with injuries, they've had injuries that have kind of seen Carlo Ancelotti have to reshuffle time and time again his starting 11 and his bench. Now, if there's an advantage City does have is in its bench compared to Real Madrid, but it's a team that's more solid. It's a team that has a base. It's a team that the players in defense understand what they have to do. And players have been able to step up throughout the entire season. And that also being said, you also have to add the Jude Bellingham factor in seeing how he ends up playing in a match like this. It'll be interesting to see his performance and, of course, how everyone performs around him in order to be able to see a Real Madrid that can be successful in all of this.
You know what's interesting to me, Leger, is the fact that there are quite a few players from Real Madrid. If they pick up a yellow card here, they're out for the second leg. We're talking about midfield engines, Bellingham, Vinicius Jr. as well, and a couple many. These players, if they get a yellow card in this first leg, they're missing the second leg. So what does that speak to the intensity that they would intend to go into this first leg with?
Yeah, I think it speaks to a lot, maybe not in the case of Bellingham and Vinicius because they will be playing more as attackers, but especially Tchouaméni, who will be filling in at centre-back tonight. So I think that's a big deal for them, but I do think that these players are intelligent enough to know, not necessarily to dial back their intensity, but know when to go into challenges. They've been in these situations before, especially both of these two teams. I don't see it being too much of a problem unless the game gets a bit out of hand. But all of those players would be extremely big losses for Real Madrid when they go to the second leg.
Ben, a name, Jude Bellingham. The difference this time around in terms of who wasn't there the last time these two teams would have met, is that a big difference, you feel?
Well, if you remember last time, it was Karim Benzema who was occupying that central striking position, and of course he's such a quality player. Bellingham obviously still hasn't reached his full potential, but still been making some great performances and have been leading the line basically in their scoring ranks. And the team also has had to revolve around him because now Ancelotti plays that diamond with Bellingham playing half a striker, half a midfielder. And so, the other players have bought into that. And obviously there's been a lot of success with that system. And Bellingham obviously is at the centre of that as well.
When Real Madrid would have last played on March 31, I believe it was. How do you look at this? Is this well-needed rest going into this clash, or is this too much time off and not quite match fit?
No, I didn't complain about it. Pep Guardiola did yesterday. He said, well, it's not fair that Real Madrid get 9 days off, obviously because it was the Copa del Rey final this weekend, and of course, no one played. And City ended up playing this weekend a very grueling match as well. And he talked about the unfairness of it. So is it a problem? It depends on how you look at it. It depends on how you're approaching this match. It does give Carlo Ancelotti and company a lot more time to prepare for a match that ends up being pivotal to the aspirations of a team. That is also very important. Now, we also have to see how nicked and how bothered City end up coming into this match. I doubt that's the case, but if you end up complaining and talking about it, that's something that Pep's kind of doing to kind of set things up in terms of any controversial calls as well. We're accustomed to see Pep doing that kind of thing.
That we are accustomed to it. Well, Mara is here, and she has a few facts about this matchup. Mara, take it away.
Yes, so team, what's so interesting about this fixture is the stats stress that Real Madrid have only won one of their last 6 Champions League matches against Manchester City. That's 1 draw and 4 losses. The numbers also show that Real Madrid have conceded 17 goals in 10 games against the Citizens, their most against a side they have faced 5+ times. Another special match fact surrounding this fixture is today's game will see the two managers with the most wins in Champions League history going head-to-head. Ancelotti with 113 and Guardiola just 4 wins behind. Well, what do the numbers say now about the reigning UEFA League champions, Manchester City? They are on a run of 10 consecutive wins in the Champions League. However, Madrid is one of only 2 sides, along with current club Manchester City, that Erling Haaland has played against more than once without scoring in the Champions League. That's 2 games against each. So, Donald, your favorite part of the show where I question you and you try to escape. Can Erling Haaland score today and erase that stat? Can he?
So here's the thing. In a word, I don't think so.
You don't think he can score today?
I don't think he can score today. Probably that's a harsh way to put it. I think he can score today, I just don't think he won't. It's not the same Erling Haaland that we're seeing. But then again, you know who's behind him? Kevin De Bruyne. Although, what I'm seeing here is that De Bruyne actually isn't starting. So there's also that. He usually needs De Bruyne's assistance. So again, he may just struggle. But I'm not sure if Ligier agrees with me on that point because there's so much pressure on the striker this season. I know what's funny. He has been fruitful, just not as fruitful as he was last term. Is that unfair to Haaland though?
Yeah, I think so because he was overperforming his expected goals by quite a high margin last season. That's not something that's linear. That's not something that you see from top strikers season and season and season. So there is always going to be a dip, but he has been scoring goals at still a very good rate in the league. He's still the Premier League's top goal scorer, and he still has been scoring in the Champions League. And to the point of Kevin De Bruyne, I think, you know, it's funny because I actually said this to one of my friends a couple of days ago before the Crystal Palace game. I don't see City's best lineup with De Bruyne in it anymore.
Wow.
Reason being because we've seen in the past couple of big games, a game against Arsenal, a game against Liverpool, he struggled to impact it because of, let's face it, he's getting a bit older. He doesn't quite have the running power, and he hasn't tailored his game to be quite the, he doesn't have quite the calmness that a midfielder should have as they get older, a la Toni Kroos, a la Luka Modric. He's still a very aggressive player, so if he's losing that running power to get down the wings and create as he usually does, I don't see City's best lineup in it, and that's specifically speaking to the talents of Phil Foden. Manchester City have played their best football this season when Phil Foden is playing in that central role, and when De Bruyne is playing, Phil Foden can't occupy that role. So.
I have to bring Ben in here just to question that point. Do you agree with what Ligier just said about De Bruyne not being in Man City's strongest 11? Obviously, Pep thinks so today, but what are your thoughts on that, Ben?
I think you should always have your best players playing, starting the game, and De Bruyne and Foden, to me, should be playing, especially in this game. I know there's a situation where if De Bruyne plays in his usual position, Phil Foden plays wide, and he may not be the same effectiveness, you know, as if he plays in De Bruyne's position. But I can't see Pep today playing both of them as 2-10s, you know, because of the nature of the game and the fact that it is in Madrid. But, yeah, I still think De Bruyne should be playing. His quality.
We have about 20 seconds, but I need your comment on this in terms of the fact that Grealish now starts out wide, De Bruyne on the bench. Your thoughts quickly.
I mean, who do you take out? Grealish is playing well. Bernardo Silva's playing well. I mean, you can't play 13 on the pitch. So, I mean, it ends up coming through, but you do have a great resort. You do have a great resource. Remember what I said earlier. Whose bench is better? City's right now.
Wow. Well, some big call by our analysts here. Will it work out for Man City? That's a big question. They are away to Real Madrid, but coming up next, we'll turn our focus to London. It's a big one, isn't it? Arsenal against Bayern Munich. Stay with us. Discussion after the break. what do we have here? What do we have here? Arsenal in the quarterfinals of the Champions League for the first time since 2010, and an arch rival in the form of Harry Kane returning in the colours of Bayern Munich to try and stop their march. But let's take a look at the head-to-head between these two teams.
Back to Arsenal's captain. Lovely ball. Here's Trossard, and Arsenal are levelling the tie.
And Harry Kane doesn't miss from there.
Second goal, is it on the cards here? Saka! It is! Here's Matty's tail! And that has sealed it.
And it's saved by David Raya. Arsenal are through to the quarter-finals of the Champions League. And David Raya is the hero.
Oh, that's magnificent! A Champions League stunner! Bayern Munich march on.
Terrific finish, and he's been threatening to do that since we kicked off.
Kroos! It is sensational!
Olivier Giroud now, and Giroud scores a fine goal.
And to have a go, it's a brilliant goal!
Interesting journeys they've taken to reach this point, but of course Bayern has dominated this clash over the years, including the last three with 3-1 victories. But I think things have changed a little bit. Leger, your thoughts?
Yeah, I do think things have changed, but at the end of the day, football is a psychological game. That I'm sure, although that was, 7 years ago now, that's still something that would be on the mind of Arsenal and their fans and their players and even their coach coming into the game. You know, obviously Arsenal have been a better team than Bayern Munich this season, but when you think about it, there's still a psychological hump that Arsenal have to get over, not only in the Premier League but in the Champions League as well, because this current crop of players haven't done it. Arsenal as a team and as a club hasn't accomplished it so far. So I think a calm performance tonight will go a long way in Arsenal really pushing forward for the rest of the season, especially in the Champions League.
When we speak about Arsenal, we speak about the psychology of the club, Ben. And I want you to highlight this for me, because a lot of people are hanging their hats on Arsenal making it to the final and winning. The question is, can they do that under the scrutiny and the pressure of the expectation?
I think a lot of people, their coveted fans, would be hoping to go all the way because they haven't won this Champions League at all, have they? But in reality, you know, they had a tough time against Porto. Yeah, they're going great guns in the Premiership. They played some fantastic football and put up some great performances. But that whole thing of experience, especially in the Champions League, you know, goes a long, long way. And they're coming up against Bayern Munich, who are seasoned campaigners. They've won it 6 times, you know, so it will be difficult.
Yeah, and it's interesting, I think, because we speak about experience, and that matters. And we just saw a shot of Kai Havertz, of course, would have won the Champions League, including scoring the goal for Chelsea a few seasons ago. I'm going to put it to you, one, in terms of the history and the experience, and if it matters against an Arsenal team which in the past has been criticized of being fragile mentally.
Or how they say in certain parts of the world, cold-chested. It's interesting, but because I like this Arsenal side, to be honest with you. It's a team that's dynamic. It's a team that it's facing a squad that is not going to drop back and defend, as Bayern Munich will not. And defensively, they were able to overcome a tougher team in Porto than Bayern Munich. So to me, it ends up being a better matchup for them in terms of what their aspirations now. And now in terms of pedigree, they're still a small club in Europe. They're still a team that has not been able to win anything in Europe against a team that has the pedigree. But then again, I mean, what we're saying about Kai Havertz, who won it, well, you could go to the other end and look at Harry Kane, and of course a monument to slow motion in Eric Dyer, who's also getting the start today. That's also going to be playing. So you can also invert it in terms of Bayern in the personnel that they have. That's a completely new generation of players, with the exception of Manuel Neuer and Joshua Kimmich. You also have to start looking at it from that perspective, saying, well, this is a new crop of Bayern. This is a different Bayern, a Bayern that no longer is at the top of the mountain, and they're trying to get back up there. Can they do it against an Arsenal side that's looking to do it? And they are all guns blazing in every facet of play.
Well, we are going to look further and deeper into the psychology of Bayern Munich, as well as the starting lineups, in just a couple of minutes. But Mara is here, and she has more match facts for us. Mara, take it away.
Yeah, so before you continue with the psychological aspect, Donald, I'm here to talk about the numbers. And with regards to Arsenal, the numbers are glaring. Arsenal have lost their last 3 games against Bayern 5-1, with each of those defeats coming in the Champions League. Will this losing streak continue, or is Arsenal a different beast this year? Only time will tell. Now, with regards to Bayern Munich, Harry Kane is key. The numbers say he enjoys playing against Arsenal, with 14 goals in 19 appearances against Arsenal, only netting more against Leicester City. That's 20. And Everton, 16. His 5 goals at the Emirates Stadium are also the joint most by a visiting player, alongside Diogo Jota and Jamie Vardy. If Bayern Munich has to win this matchup, Donald, how key will Harry Kane have to be?
I think he's actually going to be more than key. He's really instrumental, and I believe that he has a bit of a stronger force behind him. And I know that Ligier is going to get into it because of the returning players that we were anticipating being a part of this fixture. And quite a few of their top players are back to support that point man in Harry Kane. Is that a difference, or is it because they've been out for so long, we probably shouldn't anticipate so much from them so quickly?
I think it is a difference. I think they're all quality players. Leroy Sané, Serge Gnabry, who hasn't been in the best of form this season, but is still a force. And then we talk about Jamal Musiala, one of the more talented young players in world football. So that's going to cause Bayern Munich to be an even greater threat, especially on the transition. But it just so happens that they're coming up against the best defense in Europe, so that's always going to be a task for them. But I do think a key tactical tweak that Bayern have done is to remove Joshua Kimmich from the midfield and put him back to his rightful place at right back. He was suffering in midfield a bit over the past couple of seasons, especially this season. I think returning to right back, where his penetrative passing, he has more space to perform those, and he can go back to his defensive roots. I think that has improved his form a lot. But whether it's going to be enough is a different tale tonight.
Yeah, we speak about form a lot, and Bayern Munich's form has been inconsistent over the last few games. And you take a look at it, and you see where they've been just pretty much hot and cold. They're pretty much out of the title race in Germany, with Bayer Leverkusen pretty much running away with it. They have been unbeaten all season, and what a season it has been for them, as we take a look at Bayern Munich. And we can switch over to Arsenal. And Arsenal, they have been consistent, to say the least. They've just dropped a couple of points in their last 5 matches. And you can see the wins there, and since the start of the year they've been scoring a ton of goals as well. They have a proper goal difference in the league, in the English Premier League, and they have transferred that form into the UEFA Champions League. But as far as Bayern Munich is concerned, they were on the verge of elimination, Ben, in the last round. And I guess the question is, do you see them turning it around from their league form into this Champions League stage against a team that they usually beat at this elite level?
Yeah, well, you think after the Lazio win, that they would have probably kicked on a bit. And it's strange because they've got some really talented players, You mentioned Musiala, Kane obviously has continued scoring, Gnabry, Sané as well, So it's very strange what's happening. And what can you say? Maybe something's happened in the dressing room. Is it the Tuchel factor, the fact that he's leaving at the end of the season? Has that had an effect? But they really have been woeful these last couple of weeks, and it is alarming actually. And it'd be very hard, I think, to regain that form. To get past this Arsenal of today.
Harry Kane returns to familiar territory, Juan. 14 goals in 19 matches against Arsenal in the North London derby. I suppose that it's screaming that he should be the difference here tonight.
He should be a difference. And if you're depending on Harry Kane, you're forgetting about other facets of play that have affected Bayern Munich. And seeing how things have rotated around defensively, seeing all of the shortcomings that Bayern have had going backward, that's been one of the issues that Thomas Tuchel really wasn't able to answer. No one's been able to answer that, really, to be honest with you, so far this season. And that's going to be a huge, huge factor for Arsenal. To me, like I said, I like Arsenal. The only thing coming in is obviously the most likely absence of Gabriel Jesus, not only for this match, but for the rest of the season. Some people even talk about until after Copa America if he does undergo surgery. But if you look at Arsenal overall, it's just a solid team at every single block. They can play you in a low block. They can play you on transition. They can play you in various facets of play. And to me, the difference would end up being down that right side with Saka going up against Alphonso Davies. Alphonso Davies going great forward. He hasn't had his best season by a long shot this year. But also, when you look at him from a defensive standpoint, he also does have some shortcomings that can end up being a problem for Bayern.
Leger, in terms of the style of play that you're anticipating between these two teams, do you expect a lot of goals in this matchup?
Not really, because Arsenal has both won and, one said Arsenal are excellent at controlling games in multiple facets of play. I mentioned that with Real Madrid specifically, but I do think that Arsenal, as I said, they have the best defense in Europe, and they can play. If you want to play a counter-attacking game, they can do that. If you want to play a control game, you can do that. And especially at home, we've seen them control teams, elite teams, to a really high standard. We saw it against someone like Brian, who is known to control games extremely well. We saw it against Manchester City. We saw it against Liverpool a couple times this season as well. And in the Champions League, you have to remember that Arsenal have not conceded a goal at home this season. So this isn't a normal defense. As I said, the only hump that Arsenal has to get over is the psychological one, being in this competition for the first time in a long time, being at this stage in the first time in a long time. But if we're going off of form, ability, and on a tactical level as well, I think Arsenal has an advantage over almost every team in world football, and this Bayern team is no different. It's just how Arsenal apply themselves today.
Yeah, well, Saliba and Gabriel, they've been absolutely magnificent at the back for Arsenal, and the question is, will they be able to show up today against Harry Kane? Well, you heard from Leger just now, the best defensive setup in Europe based on what they have conceded so far this season. The stats do back it up, but we'll take a closer look at the starting lineups of these teams after we return from this commercial break. Stay with us.